Just as Marxism tends to lump blacks under the sign of the working class, so feminism tends to cluster black women within the rubric of women writ large. What Antonio Gramsci's work helped me to see was how and why such amalgamations and analogies are inadequate. The most besetting hobble of these theories is their inability to understand the difference between the way violence functions in the paradigm of black existence. Ironically, it was Antonio Gramsci's meditations on hegemony which helped me come to grips with why the structure of violence to which the working class is subjected cannot be analogized with the structure of violence which positions black people. The structure of violence which elaborates and sustains the working class oppression is very different, cannot be reconciled with the violence that elaborates, maintains, and sustains black oppression. The most vexing questions a black person can ask is, why did the cop shoot me? In other words, how does one account for the gratuitous violence levied against black flesh when the answer is simply, he shot me because I'm black? Not because I went on strike, not because I stole something that didn't belong to me, not because I tried to organize a union and threaten the boss's power. My being is reason enough. Now, Bakari's passage is emblematic of a kind of aphasia or inability to speak that black revolutionary autobiographical narratives are stricken with when they attempt to draw the reader into an identificatory relationship with the pained, speaking body. Discourse demands readers who will identify with the subjects it projects, but in Bakari's passage, there are only two subjects worthy of such identification. Paul Green. There is no black temporality that is antecedent to the temporality of the slave. Africa's spatial coherence is temporally coterminous with the Arab and European slave trade. The time of blackness is the time of the paradigm. It is not a temporality that can be grasped with the epistemological tools at our disposal. The time of blackness is no time at all, because one cannot know a plenitude of blackness distinct from slaveness. The prior references of the worker, such as a time before the enclosures, for example, or of the post-colonial subject, such as a time before the settler, are simply not available to black people. The social and political time of emancipation proclamations should not be confused with the ontological and epistemological time of modernity itself, in which blackness and slaveness are imbricated ab initio. Bourgeois Hollywood nature, the arc is still ontologically manifest in narrative. So I'm saying that Assata's claims to this kind of violation are not borne out because the violence that subsumes her body is greater than the potential for narrative to actually make sense of that violence. Saidiya Hartman writes, if the definition of the crime of rape relies upon the capacity to give consent or exercise will, then how does one make legible the sexual violation of the enslaved when that which would constitute evidence of intentionality and thus evidence of a crime, the state of consent or willingness of the assailed, opens a Pandora's box in which the subject formation and object constitution of the enslaved female are no less ponderous than the crime itself, or when the legal definition of the enslaved negates the very idea of reasonable resistance. We might also consider whether the wanton and indiscriminate uses of the captive body can be made sense of within the heteronormative framing of sexual violation as rape, Hartman writes.